Thank you, Brian. Thank you very much for the invitation and the opportunity to speak here. You might wonder about my accent. I was born in Austria, so if you do not understand it, maybe we can talk during the lunch break and try to elaborate a little bit on what I tried to say. Novo Nordisk and this topic, life cycle management, forecasting, might sound a little bit dry. There is water on the table in case. Novo Nordisk is a company that has been around for close to 90 years. Our headquarters is in Denmark. Our focus is chronic disease and large molecules. We are fairly largely research focused, and that gives some specific intricacies that I would like to share with you in the next 5 or 10 minutes. Oh, it says 7 here. It always changes a little bit, but I think that's the challenge also we're up for here. When we look at the pharmaceutical industry, and we have heard that in the previous rapid fire session already. So the key, we always hear change. I think there was a campaign in the US where they talked a lot about change as well. And we always keep hearing it, so we wonder when it's going to happen. But the reality is, I think we are really in the middle right now, and that's probably also the big challenge with it. We are in the middle and sometimes don't even really realize what is going on around us or how big those changes are. From our perspective, we believe it's probably one of the biggest changes that we are running through right now that we ever had in the pharmaceutical industry. Because what happens is we are challenged with new products, patent cliffs, etc. We saw that all before. We saw the sheep falling off the cliffs and all these kind of things. Pretty scary. I think the public also demands a different approach from us as an industry. There is a more desire for strict adherence, more desire for ethics. Not that we haven't been ethical, but I think we haven't always communicated it well enough. And it's about drugs, it's about medicine, it's about people's lives, which also puts our industry, our doing, and the way we operate in a fairly different light compared to many other places or many other industries that are out there, and also increases the complexity of how we operate. And that, for us sales and marketing organizations as an affiliate of a multinational here in Canada, certainly impacts and influences heavily the way we operate. And that's really what I try to talk about in the next couple of minutes. That's not news. This is the whole research and development cycle of a drug, standardized obviously and kind of averaged out. But what is critical here is what has changed, again back to this change word, in the last years, because I think we became more efficient in the earlier phase, in the basic phase with technology, with new discoveries in science, etc. So we believe we became more efficient probably in that area. But what became more challenging is actually the studies, the clinical trials, the development part of clinical drugs, and became by far more costly than ever before. Just an example from our own industry, diabetes, or our own therapeutic area, diabetes, insulin. There was an insulin that was developed in 1950, it's still around, it's called MPH insulin. That was studied with about 250 patients and made it to market globally and is still sold today. Nowadays, when we develop drugs and we want to bring drugs to market before we even sell the first unit of any package, we have probably 4,000, 5,000 to 10,000 patients through clinical programs globally in all kinds of sites. And that really changes, and changes the way we think, changes the way we have to operate, because we have larger investments. There was a little bit of debate also before on why there are fewer drugs or innovative drugs, truly breakthrough drugs. I think that's one of the reasons, because the risk and the investment is so high, and the certainty of getting approval from regulatory bodies is lower than ever before. I think that's a major challenge we're facing right now, and that has some of the implications we see downstream. But now let's look at, and I'm not unveiling any Novo Nordisk Canada trade secrets here, because the president is also here, Vince. It's all history, and those of you that have access to Brogan IMS data obviously can easily look that up. But what that means for us is also it's key as an organization here in Canada that we run a stable business, that we do run a business that is kind of growing in similar rates. So we don't have years where everything drops down, and then we have years that are great, because that has implications on how we deploy and work with our resources. So one of the key critical elements for us in life cycle management is how can we make sure that we have sound business going on for the patients, for healthcare professionals, but also for our employees, obviously. We want to give them security and certainty. And the way we do it is obviously we look back and launches, etc. Key issue we always face is the uncertainty. The uncertainty in the environment. I mean, if you look at that one, all kinds of numbers. In the old days, I don't know whom of you know Nostradamus. It was a European kind of forecasting guru in the Middle Ages. Didn't get too far, but it was very simple back then. Now, thanks to Brogan and IMS, we have loads of data, sometimes even too much data. And it's quite a challenge. Yeah, you see that up there. Sometimes we just put a glass ball on it and see what happens, and it works 50-50. So it's one of the strategies. But joking aside, the challenge is we have a lot of data, but the environment changes more than ever. And if we look at forecasting, for us, it's really about reducing uncertainty. More than ever. We have all our models. I think every company, every organization has statistic models, expert models, all kinds of things. But the key, and that's the good thing because it keeps management jobs or management employed, is the expert assessment. And nothing can really replace that, especially in an environment where we're facing all those challenges, whether it's the CDR, whether it's BRB, where I think for us as a local affiliate like Novo Nordisk in Canada, reporting back to our head office in Denmark, the challenge is always how do we explain that we have a good business here in Canada? How do we explain what we can deliver in 2, 3, 4 years when we're changing, or when we are facing challenges with the CDR, then we have to go to 10 provinces. Very uncertain what the outcomes are, very uncertain what the timings are. And that's really where we have the biggest struggle, and something we want to overcome is how can we, one, convince our partners, governments, and everybody that is interested in healthcare to run a more stable business, to give us information, give us more certainty as businesses so we can plan better. Because remember, the life cycle of a pharmaceutical, of a medicine, is up to 30 years. We have to think about 30 years when we look at life cycle management. Granted, 10 years is somewhere in development, but that's already where we have the clinical trials and everything, where Canada asks us, obviously, to have those happening also here in the local market, if we want to perform those things. But also the key considerations, really, it's this long-term horizon, the long-term perspective we need to deploy when we look at forecasting, etc. Last but not least, I just wanted to give you some examples on Novo Nordisk products and what has happened to some of them and how they were affected. You see, Victoza, that was the latest launch of us so far. It's going well. It's an excellent drug. What you see up there, this little box, the blue box, there was a development project we underwent years back. We invested hundreds of millions of dollars. It's an inhalable insulin device. Until it turned out, fairly late stage in studies, a competitor has already launched, at that time had already launched the product, turned out it's not going to make it to the market. And I know this room and every company is full of those kind of products, but that's one of the key aspects also of our job, our business is how can we balance what we know, this huge uncertainty, the change in environment with solid business operations so we can offer employment and stable conditions for patients, healthcare professionals, but also our own employees. Thank you. And with that, I would like to introduce Doug Grant. He is heading up corporate affairs at Bayer Healthcare.